Well, hello, welcome to Roland's Travels. It's Roland here, and today I'm in the village of Avoncliff, famous for the Avoncliff Aqueduct, which I'm standing on right now. This is the Avoncliff Aqueduct. Carries the Kennet and Avon Canal over the River Avon that you see below us here, and next to the river on the left, behind the old converted mill, there is the railway line as well that runs from Bath down through to Weymouth. And we're going to tell you all about these things in this video today as we travel around this little village of Avoncliff.
The name of Avoncliff originates from the name of the river that it straddles, the River Avon. It's the Celtic word for river, and the cliff part of the name obviously comes from the steep sides surrounding it, from Westwood one side and Winsley on the other. The aqueduct was built between 1797 and 1801 and is the work of the famous canal engineer John Rennie and his chief engineer John Thomas. There is a design flaw though, and you can see patchwork of stonework if you look carefully at the aqueduct, particularly the central section that kept sagging under the weight of the water. And that was rectified during the 1980s for sure, once a renovation took place on the canal and a concrete trough was built through the aqueduct to stop that happening in the future. The aqueduct is quite a size really. In total it's 110 yards long, and it spans across the River Avon, and later of course the railway came along, so it has to span across that too. The central arch has a 60-foot span, and the two sides are both 34 feet across, so very symmetrical. And we walk under the aqueduct to get from one side of Avoncliff to the other, and we can see some of the fine buildings that we'll go through. Particularly we're going to take a look at the pub, so the Cross Guns, and tell you about that. But just give you a little view now on top of the aqueduct, looking at Canal. This side used to have a tramway where the stone was brought from the hillside. Up there we can see now from Westwood. It was brought along the tramway to a stone yard just alongside the river and the canal. And this is the direction towards Bradford-on-Avon, looking at the rear of the buildings that adjoin the Cross Guns public house. So you can walk this towpath and cycle path. It is indeed, it's the National Cycle Path route number 4, and you can cycle all the way from effectively Bristol right through to the Thames and on into London. So a lot of people walk this pathway. It can be quite busy, but it's very nice to walk along the towpath and enjoy the countryside from Bradford-on-Avon all the way through to Bath if you should wish to go. It's not too far for a few hours walk. And we can see the refuges here, so that when the horses this side were towing the barges, then there's room for people to get out of the way into the refuge there, and of course on the other side when the trams were coming down as well. So we're looking at the Bradford-on-Avon side of the aqueduct now. Some fine stonework, isn't there? You certainly wouldn't build them like that today. And here's an information board telling us a little bit about the route that you could take, and a little bit of information about Avoncliff itself. So it's well worth having a look at that if you do come along and visit. And there's the River Avon flowing under the aqueduct. Just look at that stonework. Amazing, isn't it? All those carvings that had to be done. And a very tranquil morning it was when I came out here to Avoncliff. Very peaceful. No wind for once affecting the microphone, so that was nice. And this would be where the tramway would have come down from Westwood. And now we're looking towards Avoncliff Square, this direction. There's a cafe there on the corner where you can have a nice afternoon tea. But we'll take a walk down towards Avoncliff Square and tell you a little bit about that. So we'll go past the post box and walk down the lane towards Avoncliff Square, which is on the west side of Avoncliff. It was most likely built in the 1790s to accommodate apprentice workers at the woolen cloth mills in the village, and in 1835 it was converted to become the workhouse of the Bradford Poor Law Union. The 1851 census recorded that on March the 30th there were 249 occupants of the Bradford workhouse, that's 13 officers and 236 paupers. In 1923 it became the Old Court Hotel, and during World War II it was requisitioned and used as offices for the British Museum. To keep the exhibit safe, many of the valuables were placed into the tunnels in the quarry at Westwood. The hotel closed its doors in 1948. Eventually it was taken over by a family and in recent times converted into 14 properties. So let's walk back now from Avoncliff Square and take a look at the Crossguns pub. We're going to go back under the aqueduct, we'll come out from the aqueduct and we'll show you the buildings around the pub there and tell you a little bit about it. Now, there has been a pub in Avoncliff for centuries. When we see the pub, you'll see the twin gables section of the building is believed to date back to the 1490s, and there is a central inglenook fireplace built in the same style as the one in Hampton Court. To give you some idea of the dates, Hampton Court was 1514. The east wing was constructed in the early 1600s. That is to the left as we look at the property right now, and the pub was actually known as the Carpenter's Arms. So before the aqueduct was open, anyone wishing to cross the river had to use the ford, and of course during heavy rain when the river is in full flow that would have been impossible or very dangerous. Just imagine the combination of beer and water may have been a step too far for many people who'd gone out for a drink. The construction of the canal of course brought lots of trade to the pub, and apparently the landlord of the Barge Inn upstream in Bradford-on-Avon, well, he regularly brought ladies of the town to the Carpenter's Arms to warm the spirit of the bargeman. An enterprising chap, no doubt. In 1794 the 9th Battalion of the Wiltshire Rifle Volunteers was formed and established a rifle range beside the pub, and because of that the pub was renamed the Crossguns to honour the regiment. And here we have that very name to today. And of course in front of the pub is a nice open area, sitting out in the summer to have a drink or a meal. It's a nice place to come along to do that. The chimney that you can see belongs to the old mill, which you can just see in the background there. That's one of the mills with one each side of the river. There's a view from the pub looking at the aqueduct. So a very pleasant place to come, nice warm day, enjoy a walk and a pint, maybe a meal as well at the Crossguns. It's the local stone, all from the quarry in this area, is made up of the properties. So we'll give you a look at that. Now we're back on the aqueduct, looking down at the beer gardens that were for the Crossguns there on the right hand side of the river as we look at it. And in the distance is the other mill that again has been taken a long time but converted to a private house. Two busy mills in their day, and they were going for quite some time, right up to the early 1900s in one form or another. Now we got a train in the station at Avoncliff. So it's a busy line, and it's nice to be able to capture a train this morning. It must be one of the only places where you'll find a railway, a river and a canal aqueduct. So you can take the train and stop at Avoncliff if you wish, or if you walk a fair old way, catch a train back. So let's take a look down on the platform at this quaint station. The station actually opened in 1906, but the railway line was laid in 1857, and it was taken over at by GWR. It started under a different railway company, but as many did, they got into trouble. Brunel took it on with his GWR and originally laid down broad gauge track, which had to be then later changed to the standard gauge that we have today. Of course, one of the things that's amazing about this little railway station is that it survived. It wasn't given the axe by Mr. Beeching or Dr. Beeching during the 1960s. I think they tried, but decided that obviously this line was going to stay, so the station might as well remain for the inhabitants of this little village, because how else would they get anywhere? The road system in and out of Avoncliff is tight, to say the least. It's just a little narrow lane on each side of the river. So you've got the Winsley side we're looking at now, and then behind me is the westward side, and access is not that great, so having a railway station is very useful and brings in a few tourists today as well, of course, which is nice for the village. Well, we'll leave the station and take a walk along the lane towards Bradford-on-Avon on the Winsley side of the village, and the property we're coming up to on the right is where the mill manager on this side of the river would have lived many years ago. Then opposite is a property which is slightly unusual in that it's a converted pumping station. Water would have been pumped here up to the village of Winsley, and there is a reservoir at the top of the hill. I believe it's still in use today. It's a covered one now that serves Winsley with its water supply. So let's view these properties just walking back towards them, heading back towards the village of Avoncliff this way. So you can see the property on the left this time now is the former mill manager's home, and on your right is that former pumping station. Even a pumping station was built grand in its day. I know that's converted now, but the shape of it and everything is very attractive, isn't it? So when you do come to Winsley, do wander around the various parts of it, and you can enjoy very much looking at the many fine buildings, wonderful stone, all local stone, that you can enjoy seeing. I hope you've enjoyed this brief little tour of Avoncliff. For more information about Avoncliff, do visit rolandmillward.com and see my website Roland's Travels there. We give you a little bit more information in a written format about Avoncliff. I'll pop a link in the description below so you can easily find that article. So here we see the aqueduct now leaning off towards Bath in that direction, and as we sweep back across, that's going back towards Bradford-on-Avon. And there is some lovely countryside out here. The Avon Valley is gorgeous and certainly worth taking your time. If you can walk the length of it, please do when you get the opportunity. And there's a World War II reminder, the old pillbox of the aqueduct. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell, and give us a like. Take care.